We are so grateful to be supported by these community champions: Sales MD, Team Friday, Realist Lab, Kiana Patterson, Diego Chavez, Jer Boucher, Heather Ryder, Janine Sua, Lily Roca, and Steve Kernan. Hey, what's going on? Happy Friday, May 9th. It's stoppage time. It's that little bit of time between the end of your busy week and your weekend. And I'm here to hang out with you, to check in, to visit, to see how you're doing, and to share a little bit about stuff that I'm working on this week and kind of how it fits in the grander scheme of life. As well as every week now, I will give you a couple of big takeaways, probably 2 or 3 takeaways from the most recent episode of our podcast, Entrepreneurial Thinkers, which just dropped yesterday on Thursday across all our channels. So now our podcast, our main show, Entrepreneurial Thinkers, and where I get to interview the brightest, sharpest minds, the newest, most experienced crop of entrepreneurial thinkers across all sectors and segments of society, as we come together to try and leave this world a little bit better place than we found it. Those shows now drop across all platforms, video and audio, every Thursday. And so the newest one that's out, episode 158 with Goli Kalkhoran, she's a podcast host and founder of a show and a community called Lessons from a Quitter. And the conversation was incredible. Like I've been a fan of hers for a few years, unabashedly so. Huge fan and fascinated by the work that she does. And what is it, if you ask, like, what are the lessons from a quitter? Well, you're gonna have to listen to our episode and you're gonna pick up on a lot of them. But I can tell you the big punchline of this story is that Goli was a wildly successful corporate attorney, government attorney, graduated from UC Irvine with honors, graduated from UC Berkeley with honors, right? And goes out and is building the idealized life, the life that we all think we should build, right? The dream scenario, being what you're good at, making a ton of money doing it, and was completely unsatisfied, and literally walked herself through the process of quitting that career to essentially save her life. And what she has found is that didn't only resonate in her own life, but it has resonated throughout and rippled throughout her family, throughout her community. And she found a voice over time, and she found an entrepreneurial voice. She became almost like kind of unintended, almost unwilling at first entrepreneurial thinker, because she thrust herself out into the world to try and live her life completely differently than she had lived it up to that point, and that everybody had expected her to live it. And man, I can tell you, I identify with what she's going through. I may have altered my career paths and choices at different ages than she did, but I can completely identify with it. And as I've teased the fact that we had this conversation and the episode was coming up with different friends and peers of mine, I can tell you, man, boy, everybody is excited to hear this conversation because everybody can identify with these thoughts and whatnot at different points. So 3 big takeaways that I have that I'll share with you, and I'm going to talk about kind of how they tie into my world and how I think they might tie into yours, is 1, life's just too short to waste it doing shit that sucks. 2, pay attention to that nagging idea, that nagging thing, that itch that is itching. Scratch that, right? Like that thing that is chewing away at your mind or keeping you up at night might just be the thing that is your thing. It might just be the thing that is your path to a more joyful, more fulfilled, purposeful life and career. And then I want to talk about her unique concept of thought swapping. And this idea behind this phrase, thought swapping, and how it can help us all to just kind of lean into and live and work in much more intentional, almost I would say like bite-sized ways. So those were like 3 big themes. The first one that hit me is just this idea of, life's too short, right? Like, let's not do stuff that sucks, and that's my phrase, right? And in fact, I wrote that phrase in my LinkedIn profile, in the essay in which we are supposed to use LinkedIn to describe ourselves to other people, right? If you go back in there, mine was essentially written, updated since then, but like core written back in 2014, and has largely stayed the same since then. And one of the central phrases in there is that life's too short to do stuff that sucks. I believed it then. I believe it now. That kind of simple principle almost drives me on a regular basis. Now, having said that, like the life that I've traded that sucked was stable, predictable. It had a title that everybody could identify with. It had me in a role that everybody could kind of attach to me and attach me to. It made it easy for people to digest. Like, what does he do? Hey, what do you do? Right? When they met me, because I was the CEO of a technology company, right? But in those circumstances, in those moments, at the end of that chapter in my life, like it sucked. It was eating me up from the inside. It was the next project in a string of successive business projects that were successful or unsuccessful to varying degrees for different reasons, right? And it was like, kind of, this is what I do. Okay, you go take the next project on. You take the next project on. And why do you do it? Well, because it's what you do, right? And not only is it what you do, but it's supposedly what you're good at. And then what you're good at is what you do. And then that's how you make money. And then you do it in part because you make money doing it, because you're good at it, and because people perceive you to be good at it, right? And we wind up in this spiral of essentially, oftentimes, more often than most people like to admit, doing things that don't bring us joy and that aren't purposeful. And Goli is exactly that. Like, she is this beacon of hope for all of us, or any of us, anyone, anywhere, who has ever had those Sunday scaries, as they call them, right? Who has ever thought to themselves, like, I hate my boss, or I hate my job, or I don't make enough money. They don't pay me enough to do the shit that I have to do, right? I mean, these are all phrases that all of us had thought about at different times. And I can tell you, to the entrepreneurs and the entrepreneur investors that are in our audience that are listening to this, you all go through this as well. Like, there's no like magic, oh, well, just because you're on the other entrepreneurial side, like, you're not prone to the same stressors or the same worries or the same disappointments or struggles emotionally as those that are in the working world that have careers, like, traditional career jobs. That's bullshit. Like, we have our own sets of weaknesses and flaws and fears and superstitions and things like that, right? And so, there's Sunday scaries for entrepreneurs, and it just takes on another context. And if anything, I think the inside of the entrepreneurial world, as opposed to the career world, you're just told to, like, kind of just put your head down and be grateful, right? In the entrepreneurial world, you're just told to just grit your way through this, right? So you're scared of Sunday as an entrepreneur? Well, figure it out, right? Because it's not supposed to be happy. You're supposed to be scared. Like, you're supposed to be nervous about Monday morning, because you got to get up and hustle, right? And as if, like, that grit uniform that you're supposed to put on is like protection against all of the negative, self-deprecating, self-defeating thoughts and energy that a person can have. And obviously that's not true, right? No more than it is true to put on that gratitude uniform that you put on when you go to your corporate job on Monday morning and you say, like, I know I hate this, and I know I feel undervalued, and I know this isn't bringing me joy or purpose, but hey, I'm a lawyer, I'm a doctor, I'm an accountant, I've got a good job, I take care of my family, I've got a great salary, but I'm woefully unhappy. Goli dives all into that stuff with us. And it's a fascinating conversation. And like, it spoke to me in ways. I've been an admirer and a fan of her work for years from a distance. Ironically, we don't live far from one another here. I'm in LA. She's down in South Orange County, and she actually lives really near my family by choice, my best friend's house down there. So we have a lot in common in that way. So it's kind of easy to get to know each other. But I've just been a fan of her work because it's amazing to me as an empath, as someone who mentors, advises, coaches, tries to help people through our podcasts to find greater context in their work and their life, right? Ask the bigger questions, like to watch her do what she does just via social media, and then to now have the chance to hear it and hear about the story behind it. It's an incredible journey. So that was one of the big takeaways, is life's too short. The second big one is like, we get these nagging little itches in our lives, in our minds, in our hearts that sometimes keep us awake, man. Like sometimes those are the path through to the other side. And Goli tells an incredible story about her own nagging kind of itch that wouldn't go away, that even after she left her corporate law gig and endured all that stress of the unknown and the uncertainty, and she had a young baby at the time, she went and did something entrepreneurially and created a product and a company that also wasn't kind of super joyful and fulfilling. It was fun, and it was interesting, and it was challenging, but like her pathway to getting from the corporate lawyer, government lawyer, to the side of being the entrepreneur podcast host that she is now was not linear at all. And so we talk about that, right? And she talks about how she had kind of these nagging itches of ideas and things that were pulling at her. And one of them was ultimately what has now manifested itself as Lessons from a Quitter, as the podcast and the community. So, pull at those things, man. The things that are nagging at you, pulling at your heart, keeping you awake at night, are doing it for a reason. Like, that's your soul speaking to you. And I can tell you that in my own journey. Like, I am in large part doing what I'm doing here with you all because these things, this ability to communicate with you, this ability to interview amazingly and talented, bright people about the big issues in our entrepreneurial economies around the world, like on Entrepreneurial Thinkers, like these are things that pulled at me for years that I just keep getting pulled towards, no matter how unstable and how risky and how sometimes depressing and so sometimes worrisome and full of fear and uncertainty and all the stuff that comes with being on the entrepreneurial journey and betting on yourself as an artist. Like no matter that, like the truth is I'm scratching at that itch, much like Goli did and like she tells us to. So that, and then the final big takeaway is this idea, which is unique to her. I'm going to say she should trademark this if she hasn't, but I want to share with you, it's thought swapping. And what she does is she practices this exercise online on, I think it's usually Mondays or Tuesdays early in the week with her community, where she literally invites people to just submit in the small character of a post inside of an Instagram post, like the limited number of characters or words that you can put in there. Post a thought that is doing harm to you or bringing you pain or creating uncertainty in your life. And she then gets on and she swaps that thought out for a different way to think about the same thing. And I got to tell you, like the exercise of watching that happen online over the last couple of years has been incredible. But I want to bring that forward to today, right? Like we are living in a world right now at hyperspeed, politically here in the United States, geopolitically, globally, macroeconomically. Like we're living in a world where literally the thoughts we are consumed by, overwhelmed by, washed over by, as we try and process and react to all of this other noise that is coming at us from so many different directions, so unstably, so certainly so kind of disorganizedly, like the thoughts that we need to swap out to think about the things that we're facing as entrepreneurs on a daily basis, as investors on a daily basis, as just humans in this world that we live in on a daily basis. Like those thoughts that we need to learn how to swap out are doing us damage. They're like I am convinced they literally eat us from the inside out. I'm convinced that in some ways cancer is not only like a byproduct of outside external environmental circumstances and things, but it's also a thing about what we put into ourselves. Like literally it's what we absorb. And I think you could become cancerous inside literally biologically as a result of absorbing so much negativity and stress from your own life or from the lives around you. And so, like just this idea of swapping thoughts, and I have one in my own personal life right now, I'll share kind of transparently, right? I've talked to you many, many times recently about how we're building this business. I've talked to you about how opportunistic that is and how excited I am and how specific the vision is that we have for all that we can do related to the Entrepreneurial Thinkers podcast and beyond. But I also have shared with you transparently a few times kind of the between the lines of that, the hardness of it, the difficulty, the fear, the uncertainty, the instability financially of what I'm trying to do. And I got to tell you, like the ability to think about my own life, and I say it now to friends, I say I've got a left side column and a right side column in life. And my left side column is the positives and the opportunities, and my right side column is the obstacles and the challenges. And my left side column is overflowing. There are hundreds of items on my left side column in life. And there's one on my right side column in life. And I have decided in my own kind of exercise of swapping thoughts, right, rather than let that one obstacle or challenge become the overwhelming narrative that says like my life sucks or my life is difficult or this journey is hard because of this, right? Rather than let that become the case, like I'm just leaning into the fact that my life is incredible, that I'm blessed, that I'm gifted. Hello, doggy, making an appearance in the show. There we go. Right. I'm gifted because I'm overwhelmed by positives and opportunities on the left-hand side column of my life. And I just have one obstacle and challenge that I need to solve and stabilize on the right-hand column of my life. But that doesn't mean that my life isn't fucking awesome and that I'm not grateful for every bit of it. Even the challenges, right? So there's my own little application of Goli's incredible tool and teachings around thought swapping. But, listen to this episode and dig into the more specific examples. She tells the incredible story of her own kind of both immigrant journey as well as just the perspectives that come with that, right? The cultural pushback from changing and swapping out a career to save her life, right? The fact that so many of her peers literally will risk their lives. Suicide rates for lawyers who hate working in the law are higher than most other career paths she taught us, right? Like people will literally stay in those paths, in that narrow path, because that's what they're supposed to do. That's what they're good at. That's what people tell them they're expected them, rather than like literally get themselves out of that and believe and find out that life can be lived in a whole bunch of different ways, which Goli tells us a number of anecdotal stories about her own journey over the conversation. So I hope you enjoy the conversation. I hope whatever's going on in your life this week, in your business, in your pursuing investment. I know there's a ton of my young entrepreneurial friends, founder friends, who are out raising capital. I know there's a ton of my emerging new venture capital management funds, fund managers who are out raising capital, and it's really, really hard. And the world being as uncertain as it is because of the political leadership or lack of leadership we have here in the U.S. Is not making any of that easier. And so I know you're overwhelmed with negative thoughts. I know we're all battling our own kind of depressive instincts. But, like I'm here to say, like in this little bit of stoppage time between the end of that work and the beginning of our weekend, find some calm. Remember to breathe. Remember always, you're not alone. Like I'm here talking to you. I'm listening to you in the DMs and in the social media posts. We're always here for you. You're here for me all the time. You energize me. Doing this literally feeds me and gets me out of my own, swaps my thoughts about my day and what's in front of me. And so you're not alone on this journey either. And if you're in a career path and you're not happy, and you're not happy, and the volume of the Sunday scaries is so loud that it's overwhelming everything good in your life, it's time to think about maybe swapping out your career to save your life. And so I hope you enjoy this episode. My recommendation, no book for you this week, but I am going to strongly recommend you go find, wherever you listen or view podcasts, go find Goli's podcast, Lessons from a Quitter. It's an incredibly valuable show. She's a wildly talented hostess and conversationalist. And I just really, really encourage you to enjoy this and to find the joy in what you're doing, because life is too short to do stuff that sucks. Peace. And I'll see you right back here next Thursday on the next episode of Entrepreneurial Thinkers, and next Friday right back here on Stoppage Time.